Welcome back, Flyers nitty-gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, Vasili, Gianarakos. Welcome back for another show. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Yariv. Got to go to Montreal last week, head to the draft. So, yeah, that was a great experience to just get down there and make the drive and just get to, interview all the Flyers prospects that got selected and just congratulate them on the success, of making it to the NHL. Cool. Which is awesome. And then also just to, be there on behalf of Flyers Nitty Gritty and get to, put the coverage out there for the site. That was great too. And just great experience overall to meet a ton of people, stuff like that. So it was awesome. And then I'm excited to even, dive into the draft here with Steve, because watching stuff unfold when I was there, I was thinking, you know what, Steve, when you were on earlier, maybe a month or two ago, you gave some great insight, and a lot of it kind of did go that way, that you kind of, gave out to us. So that was awesome. And then how are you doing though, Yariv, this week so far?
I'm doing well, buddy. Thanks. I can tell you're so excited about the draft.
It's awesome. I know.
Yeah, it's awesome. And obviously, welcome back. And we kind of we hinted about this already. I told people he could be back on, but obviously from the draft analyst, he runs it. He had, I would say, quite a very successful couple of weeks, at least from what I can tell in the analysis you gave us. Steve Kournianos. Steve, welcome back, my friend.
Always a pleasure, guys. Hope everything is going fine with you.
Yeah, it's going well, man. Yeah. I gotta ask, the wallpaper behind you, the draft analyst wallpaper, is that for like press conferences? Like, is that for your videos?
No, listen, here's the deal. No, it wasn't. It's not to be like pretentious or anything like that.
No, not at all.
I live in like a shared office. Executive office, like it's called executive, it's not that fancy, but like executive office building. And so I had windows with blinds on them, but they're not like people could like always trucking in back and forth and looking. I'm like, I gotta cover this. I gotta, so I was thinking about getting like, my wife's like into interior design and fashion. So she's like, oh, I'll do everything all nice and pretty. I'm like, no. Let me get something that, kind of goes with the motif in the room. It's a sports theme, and so I was going to get like hockey team logos, but I'm like, let me just do the draft analyst. And the thing is, though, it smelled like massive chemicals when I first got it, so I had to like keep it in my yard for months to get that smell out. But now it works fine. So it's just a covering for the windows for privacy. That's it.
That is such like a man story. My wife wanted to make it all pretty, and I'm like, no, stop it.
Yeah.
Just let it be.
Yeah, Yeah, so it's not like it's not like I have people come in here like, let's interview the draft analyst. Like, it's just there to, block out the foot traffic from peering in and seeing what I got going on.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I liked it nonetheless. I thought it would be cool for videos. All right, well, let's get into it. We have a lot to talk about, and we'll start with a little bit of Flyers news, and then talk about some draft, and we'll talk about Flyers draft specific, and then we'll talk about some free agency stuff there at the end. But let's talk about recent news, and we'll start off with somebody that I believe you're pretty familiar with, Steve. I mean, let's be honest, you probably scouted him to some degree, and then obviously you've seen him kind of rise as a player through the league. Tony DeAngelo, the Philadelphia Flyers have traded for his rights and then signed him immediately after. Now, they gave a sizable package away, a second, a third, and a fourth, all in consenting year. I guess the second and the third in the same year. But it's, a high trade for a guy who, from what I can tell, had a great year for a very good team with a really high skill set, who has had some issues in the past. I'll just say it at that. But a big deal here in Philadelphia because from what I can tell, it's a Jacob Slavin is the Provorov, and they think that maybe that can work for a top pairing here. Worked on a really good team. Maybe can help fill that void that Ryan Ellis is clearly leaving now. And even if he comes back at the end of the year, I mean, I think this is admitting from the organization that, Ryan Ellis is in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, let's start off with you, Steve, because Vasili and I have already talked about this quite a bit, at least to some degree. Let's open up with you. What do you have to tell us about Tony DeAngelo coming to Philly? What do you think about us like trading for him? Is he worth the risk?
Yeah, absolutely worth the risk. Absolutely one of the top offensive defensemen in the game. You can't deny that. He's one of the best power play quarterbacks in the game. There's a trade-off though. And the trade-off is always going to be on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff that goes on out of the rink and the reputation and the name calling and his past, to me, that is completely irrelevant. It means absolutely nothing. Because when he's on the ice, although he does have a tendency to kind of lose his cool and do dumb things, like take a bad penalty, egg on an opponent, like a little slash after the whistle. But hundreds of players have done that throughout history, especially if you're a Flyers fan. I can name 50 Flyers that used to do that stuff, where, it's part of their shtick, right? They're going to be an agitator. They're going to be a pest. They're going to get under the opponent's skin. And DeAngelo still does that. Carolina gave him the opportunity. They probably read him the riot act and said, "Hey, you're going to shut up and you're going to just come here and play. We have cup aspirations. And so we are not going to allow you to mess up this chemistry that we have." Because, Carolina's a fun bunch with the whole jerks thing. And so, but it was a seamless transition. You could say he kind of replaced Dougie Hamilton as that right shot. And I don't know offhand what Carolina's power play was, but they're pretty effective with him there. So, with Philadelphia, I mean, talk about he's from the Philly and he's got this checkered past and all this stuff. It means absolutely nothing, because every fan base, every time he shows up to that team, the fan base says, "Oh, we hate him. Oh, we don't want him there. He's a bad person." And then within a week, when he's scoring overtime goals and setting up beautiful plays, people are like, "I guess he's not that bad of a player," which is how sports coverage used to be. You didn't think about politics. You thought about the performance on the ice. So I think it's a good acquisition, expensive. Especially, I don't know, was that a second round pick in 2023?
No,
third round pick in 2023, fourth round pick in the 2022 draft, and then second rounder in 2024. So
it's consenting. Okay.
All right. So if it was a 2023, I'm like,
No, I think
that wouldn't.
That's the one thing the Flyers refuse to trade, and it looks like those 2 first round picks as well.
Yeah. But again, like, just to sum it all up, he is a pure power play quarterback. He is an offenseman, a one-way guy. He is not going to be a shutdown guy. If you want him on the ice for late and close to Billy's not going to be on the PK. At least I don't think he will be. Where he's got good hands, right? So he's got an accurate shot, so he can maybe put the right touch in the clearing attempt, avoid the icing, little things like that. But one-on-one, floating, slot coverage, like lack of slot coverage, that's part of his game. But what you get is the breakout, the clean puck handling, the good crisp first pass, entering the zone. And once he's in the zone, you could trust him. The forwards in Carolina, they got talented forwards. They trusted him to orchestrate that power play. And so that says a lot about him. So he will always have value in this league, just like Marc-Andre Bergeron going back 10 years, where the guy could do nothing but quarterback a power play. Yeah. It's going to be a similar situation with DeAngelo. So, hey, 50, 60 points, definitely not out of the question for him. And I think the fans are going to like him. He's a scrappy guy, and no matter how you view his off-ice antics but again, at the same time, he's got to tone it down sometimes. No pun intended. Like, totally. He really has to just stay within himself and not try, if he did a lot of dumb stuff in the Carolina Rangers series, and I'm like, dude, just freaking grow up. You know what I mean? Like, just move on from this stuff. But
costing your team at certain points.
But I think it was a good acquisition, especially now with this Ellis thing. Yeah. But he's not going to solve the defensive wall, the defensive walls, that's not why D'Angelo.
I honestly don't think that they think any one player is going to solve their defensive woes. I think that that's where John Tortorella is supposed to come in. Yeah. I think that they think that this team is better defensively than they played, and I believe that too. Yeah. And I think it's a team issue that was a defensive problem.
Stems from the forwards too, right? Like, they have to help the D out in certain cases, which they didn't last season. So
I brought this up over and over again. I still don't believe that AV should have been coach of this team to start the year. I think the entire team collapsed, and I think we saw it. Yeah. There's no structure. That is not the way. Even I've said this, Steve. You'll agree with what I'm definitely. You'll agree with what I'm saying. Bad teams don't get blown out 9-1. That has nothing to do with being bad. If you're bad, you lose 3-2, you lose 4-2, you lose a couple deal breakers over and over again, a couple heartbreakers. You give up the last minute goal repeatedly. You don't get blown out over
to the extent that they did when they were under AV, which is a lot.
That is a team in utter disarray, and that is a different thing. So I do think somebody like DeAngelo, look, I've mostly have seen highlights of him, and I've seen him when we played against him. he seems to me like a guy that the Flyers can very much use, which is a guy who can really shoot from the point, just like Ryan Ellis, but a really good shot from the point, a good puck mover. I like the aggressive nature. I'm not a big fan of undisciplined, though I'll take it if they're not a bore. Like I can't, and hear me out here, Steve. You'll know the team from this era because obviously you watch hockey longer than both of us, but the Flyers had no identity. I clearly see this in the moves that they are making, that they are trying to be, I think they're open to the fact they might not even be the best team, but they want to be a difficult team to play against. And if that means having D'Angelo and he's annoying and he'll yell at your coach, good, better than hiding and cowering on the bench.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we talked about it last year, going back to last year, 2 seasons ago, where it's like they have to be tougher to play against. And D'Angelo, for all his faults, on the defensive side of thing, like he is a pain in the neck to deal with in the offensive zone because he's spinning around. He's got the puck on a string. He doesn't stay. He's not static. He's always in motion. He shifts his body weight a lot. So you really don't know, like he looks off. So you really don't know if he's going to shoot it, if he's going to pass it, if he passes it, which way is he going to pass it to? So things like that is where he's effective. And that ties into, part of becoming a tougher team to play against is having the puck longer than the Flyers usually had it the last year and a half. Where when he has it, he's got soft hands, so he could handle the tough passes from low to high or D to D. I think it's a good move. I really do. And I know people want to talk about how Tortorella, but Tortorella has a way where I think Tortorella is going to love him personally because D'Angelo is a team first guy. He is not a selfish play. He's a team first guy. And that's what happened with the Rangers. He's calling out Georgiev. He's like, hey, dude, freaking stop a puck. And Georgiev is a head case, and the Rangers got rid of him. So D'Angelo basically did what a lot of Rangers wanted to do, which is tell Georgiev, hey, man, you suck. Stop the puck.
Can you explain something to me about that? From what I understand, Georgiev hit D'Angelo, but then
initially, right? Yeah.
Yes.
But then D'Angelo was the one removed because they had conversations with him or something like that prior to that.
All right,
but I assume when you're the one using violence.
From what I understand is that D'Angelo was becoming a very vocal guy in the locker room, and people were trying to tell him like, hey, man, calm down. And Georgiev was one of the guys that just wasn't really liking what, and if it was talking about politics, who knows? But just didn't get along to begin with. And so that overtime goal was, Georgiev, I never liked the guy. I never thought he was a good goalie. He was good that 1.5 year, but he had a lot of mental issues, breakdowns, emotional, weak goals. And so when D'Angelo said that, you have to look at it through when he said, stop the frickin' puck or stop the effing puck. You have to look at it through like two guys that didn't get along to begin with. And Georgiev is already frustrated that the team was losing. And so, the fans were on his case. And so he basically saw D'Angelo and went after him. And, the decision to remove D'Angelo from the team had a little bit to do with the fight. I think it had a lot to do with just a buildup, the whole political thing. And he wouldn't shut up about it. And the team loved him. They were always on his side, but he was a distraction. I guess the best way I could put it. And all reports out of Carolina was that he wasn't a distraction there, that he got back to hockey. He bought in, and he was humbled by the whole, like, hey, man, anyone could be bought out. Anyone could be released or waived. I don't care how many. And remember, the season before, D'Angelo put up a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly.
So, again, I think it's a good move. I think it's going to help the Flyers. If they lose, if they're bad again, then his whatever mistakes he make is gonna be magnified. And when he's frustrated, he could be a loose cannon. He could do something stupid or say something stupid. So I'm hoping for his sake and the Flyers' sake that they're at least competitive or in the hunt for a playoff spot to kind of keep him in line. Because if things unravel, then you never know what he could say or do, and that's the risk. When you pay all these draft picks for him, it's the risk.
Yeah, I agree. I think at least with D'Angelo, like, to what you're saying, Steve, it kind of shows a bit of a level of maturity. Obviously, like the checkered past, everything that's happened. Those aren't good things, but people can change in life, right? So hypothetically, that happened to him in New York. he grew up a little bit, showed, a level of maturity there. And then from that point, you don't see that happen in Carolina. He has his best season playmaking wise, gets 41 assists, best point per game average, .80, I think 51 points in 64 games or something along those lines. So pretty solid point per game. Can really move the puck up ice. And that was one of the things that the Flyers had like a ton of trouble with last season, is actually getting the puck out of their own end. And that'll help like a great deal. Yeah. They were 12.6, I think, percentage on the power play, which is abysmal. They were worse in the league. And when we got to talk to Chuck Fletcher at the draft about the trade and everything, he said that was one of the main reasons they acquired him, is the power play's been so bad. They need somebody to run the power play and at least get it above the clip that it was last season, remove it from the bottom of the league. So I think that's one of the main things, just the fact that he can move the puck the way he can. And from the back end, they did really need a guy that could move the puck next to Provorov, because he can't struggle when you have him next to a player that isn't necessarily the best puck mover, like a Justin Braun or a type like that they did have him playing with last season. So I think DeAngelo will help get the best out of his game, and vice versa. I think they'll work off each other, and we'll kind of see what goes along. And I think that Tortorella too, if there was going to be an issue or rift there, they wouldn't have even traded for him. So he must have,
exactly.
He must have okayed it and been open to it and all those types of things. So
I mean, if you listen to our fan base, the Tortorella already doesn't get along with Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim, Ivan Provorov. I don't know if there's many players he does get along with at this point. I think he wants to remove them all. And that's why he took the head coach.
You know what, though? Listen, the team's stunk the last 2 years. They have no say. They have no say. Who cares about the players' feelings the last 2 years? They've been terrible.
No, absolutely.
They've embarrassed the emblem. It was embarrassing. You need to fix this.
And Tortorella's a guy who will do that. I mean,
at a minimum, they're going to compete.
And they're going to be held accountable. And
they're going to be better with leads that, hey, you know what? Every time you get the puck, you always dump it in because you're scared to get hit. Well, every time you do that, I'm going to bench you. That's what Tortorella does. And the fans are like, no, his feelings. The poor guy's feelings. I feel so bad for him. Again, and it doesn't result in wins and points in the standings. So Tortorella will definitely make the team more competitive. They'll be tighter defensively. They'll be closer games. The key now is scoring key goals. That's been the big, and I don't know how Tortorella's going to fix that. Where, if it's a 2-1 game and you're down, how are you going to come back? Whereas Tortorella, I think, is better for when they have the lead. But last year, they didn't have a whole lot of leads. It seems like they're down early.
I think it's very important not to take last year as this is the way this team plays. Because, again, not having Sean Couturier in this team, like you lose Couturier and Hayes. Again, you take the two top centers off of most teams, especially mediocre ones, they're not surviving. And any of our ability to do any of that was out the window. Not only were we not great on ice, like on paper, but we also were injured. So we just became immediately one of the worst teams in the league. And I think that's important. I think if he can squeeze what I've said about this year, and I think getting DeAngelo, because his age makes sense. This is a guy, if it works out, it could work out for a while. Who knows? Potentially. But the idea is can Tortorella come in here and get this ship right? Like, can we be a respectable hockey team again? Can we have an identity? Can we be a tough team to play against? Can we not be, hey, this is an easy 2 points? That even if they play tough against us, we might be able to still win even at the very last second of the game. Yep. We can't be that team anymore. And I think I like what you said, Steve, and I don't think this podcast is enough because we're pretty positive, but we both feel this way. We've said it at times. It was embarrassing to see this team play the way that it played.
Yeah, getting the blowouts, to me, it's one thing to, like you said, to lose 3-2, you hit the post here, a losing streak, but to have all those losses, then to have the players and the media going back and forth with one another, and it's just again, this is.
It's a lot of things that are just broken, it seems, or were anyway.
Yeah, but it's going to be a long haul. I really don't know. We could talk about it at length.
Well, let's
the prospects for next season because of the state of that conference, the state of that division, the state of that conference, all the other teams rebuilding. It's going to be a bloodbath again, just like last year.
100%. That's why the goal should be not to win the division this year. Your goal is to be like, well, I want to be the best in the division the following year. And what steps can I put in place now that can get me to that point? And I think first is fixing the culture and making sure at least we're a respectable place. All of a sudden we can bring, like, even if they don't get Johnny Gaudreau, and we'll talk about that later, like, okay, fine, then clear cap space. Don't lose assets, clear cap space, get a good guy in this draft, and then do it for real when you actually have some room. You're not desperate and overpaying for everything, because even this D'Angelo, while I do like it, I mean, you're just paying a lot all the time for an RFA that this team potentially, they weren't going to sign this guy anyway. And I get that there was probably some kind of bidding war over it, which is probably why it happened. But it does feel like Fletcher overpays for everything. Yeah. And I saw a tweet by just like Steve, I know you follow the Senators closely. What they have done this offseason, they have not lost any first-round picks. They've improved their team. They're in a healthy cap situation, and they're getting sold. They're in a better position than the Flyers are, and they're making smarter decisions. They're not losing every trade. Even the trade to the Leafs, they didn't lose that trade. No. They got what they needed. So it's like that's the way the team should operate. Is not panicking. Great. And I think that goes into the next move right now, which I think we can categorize as a panicky move, buying out Oscar Lindblom on his last year as an RFA. Having said this, I will say this. If you look at the qualifying offers that were not offered this year and the young players available, it's not going to be just the Flyers. There is going
happening around the league for sure.
It's because of a stagnant cap. All of these salaries are now worth less money. So that's how I see it. So Oscar Lindblom gets moved. Steve, again, I'll go to you first on this because I think I want the outside view. How do you see this?
There's two. First of all, we have to remember that it's a business, right? Absolutely. As much as we love him and his story, and he was a fan favorite, and he when before the it was cancer, right?
Cancer.
He had that a productive year. I'm pretty sure it was he had one year that was really good.
That year he was on 30
like goal pace.
Yeah.
Okay, so but things changed. The team is not in a contending window anymore. He was part of that group when they were like either a bubble playoff team or a playoff team. And then on top of that, we've talked about this on every time I talk about the Flyers. What do you always talk about? The depth at wing, both left wing and right wing. And so, with him, you have all these kids in Lehigh Valley. You got kids playing out of position because there's no room. You have wingers playing center. So I think that, he wasn't a Fletcher guy. I think Oscar was already there when Fletcher showed up. So you don't have that relationship to begin with. So I agree with it from a business standpoint, but the key is what you said, Yariv. Every team was losing guys, not qualifying guys that were like, what? Yeah. Nashville didn't qualify Dave Farrance? Like, this is nuts. But again, it's just the way the ball bounces, how they drafted, all the contracts that they have available, and so on. So
let me add the one context, Steve, before you continue. For those who are not aware, the Flyers do recover $3.3 million of cap space by doing this because he's young. So it's not a typical buyout. Like, they actually win in this case.
Yeah, they get an extra $300,000.
Business-wise, it's ruthless. Yeah. But again, I can't disagree with that. My whole point is
jobs. He'll get picked up though.
Without a doubt. My whole point is that this is happening because of mismanagement.
Yeah.
We got to this point is the only thing. Business decision. Yeah, I get it.
It would have been nice if he could have stayed, but and at the same time, they had him on for the last 2 years. The last 2 years were not fun. So you got to make changes, and it would have been nice if he was there for a turnaround if it happened, but
now somebody else can benefit from it.
I mean, it's a cap casualty at the end of the day. I mean, if he made $1 million, do we see this happening? Most likely not, right? So it's just the fact that he's getting paid $3 million. The team, wants to free up cap space to make other moves or even qualify. I mean, the agents, they're the players they kind of sent qualifying offers out to, because before this move that they made, they didn't even have cap space to pay the RFAs they were trying to qualify. So I mean, it's something that had to be done in that sense. Obviously, you saw Lindblom. It sucks in a way that you saw him kind of turning the corner and kind of regaining a lot of his conditioning over the past season. So you did see elements of his game before the cancer like starting to come back. You can't really see that when you look at like the point totals. I mean, he had what was it? I think 20 goals, 40 points in his last 129 games. So, I mean, for $3 million, the production isn't there. So it makes sense why they kind of ended up buying him out for the extra 300,000 plus the 3 million on top. And you got to, go to what you guys were saying. It's a business. I mean, it's unfortunate. Obviously, it's great to see him recover. But I mean, the Canadians moved on from Saku Koivu when a similar thing happened. Brian Boyle, same thing. So it happens. Sucks to see. But like you were saying, Steve, I mean, he's going to get picked up by another team and he'll have a chance to rebound. So we'll see where that is. But good luck to Oscar, and hopefully, it all goes well from here.
He is a millionaire, so I will say that. Yeah. Good for you, Oscar. At least you're not like. Well, it was scary because at the time he was on his ELC too.
Yeah,
it's like just as your career is taken off and you finally are getting rewarded for your life's effort, you get life-threatening cancer, and then you might not get a contract. So give Fletcher kudos for giving him that 3-year deal
for $3
after
million.
Cancer. Yeah, for $3 million. Yeah. So I mean, no matter what, he would have been taken care of for his life. So I'll say that. At least for most of it, if you use it wisely. So good luck to Oscar Lindblom. You will be missed. It's unfortunate. And I guess the last bit of this is not really news, but I guess the next we can expect is really from JVR. We know the team is shopping him. I know that Anthony Sanfilippo had the inside scoop there about the Flyers are not willing to pay the price tag to move JVR. I think some of that probably is posturing.
Yeah, of course.
I could see a team biting on him. I just don't know. Maybe the cost is too high. If it is, I mean, the Flyers can still buy him out. I don't know if anybody's that excited to do that, but it's interesting that you can't even move a 24 goal scorer
on a 1-year deal. Yeah,
on a 1-year deal at 50% retained, unless the Flyers refuse to do that, and that's part of this.
They refuse to retain the 50%. I mean, I would say that if teams are asking for the 2023 first, the Flyers would be out of their mind to trade that. So they should not let go of that pick.
I wouldn't even do the 2024 secondary one.
Yeah, the 2024 first round picks, I would not trade either. They have one from Florida, one of their own as well. I mean, this team, what do they lack? High-end talent. Where do you get high-end talent? First rounds of drafts. So I don't think they're in a position to really trade those picks. I mean, no matter how bad they want to free up cap space and sign Johnny Gaudreau at the end of the day. But they can go 10% over the cap hypothetically. So, I mean, they're at about 3.5 million now. So 10% of 82. I mean, they'd be around 11 million of cap space.
Yeah,
they might try to make an offer, but
they have the LTIR space too.
Yeah, LTIR space. But then you put yourself into a crunch. So I would be surprised. I mean, if I think the Gaudreau thing ends up getting done without the JVR move, I don't think something like that can happen. But you never know, right? Cap maneuvering.
Yeah, it's not pretty. Steve, do you have any thoughts on JVR?
I mean, he's a UFA at the end of the season, right?
End of the season, he
$7
makes
million deal.
He makes
play
$7
million. Play him. Just play him. No reason to move him now. I know that if the Gaudreau thing is,
they want to bring in Gaudreau. That's the reason.
All right, but
and I do believe it's very real.
How big of a difference is Gaudreau going to really make though?
He's not, but you got to realize a team that I agree with you overall. I don't even know if it's the right move, but it's a guy from what I can tell wants to come home. He's from South Jersey. This is his team.
No, I get all that. What I'm saying is,
go ahead. Sorry.
Look at the Rangers and the Panarin situation, right?
Yeah.
They brought him in. He had 2 All-Star seasons. And it didn't do much for them in the standings. They didn't make the playoffs. They had to wait for the goalie to hit for him to, so
the team to actually be good, of course.
Yeah, and he had a horrible postseason. So as a star player for the team. So, but the point I'm making is that, is there going to be another opportunity over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years to get a player like a Johnny Gaudreau?
Probably.
Yeah. Or is do you have to get this guy now because he's the crown jewel, the free agent class, and so on? My thing is that JVR by midseason will be tradable. Absolutely. 100%. And you can probably get a 2nd-round pick for him.
I wanted to add this, Steve. He makes $5 million of real cash dollar, one of which is a bonus. So it'll be paid for by then. And if you're talking about a team that's not a wealthy team,
but you also have to
but low money.
you also have to factor in that these guys are veterans. This guy wants to get paid. His contract is expiring. He wants to be able to make something similar to what he used to make. I don't know if he's married or if he has kids, but the wife, everyone involved in his camp is like, hey, we liked it when you made $7 million a year. Now you're going to make only one? No. So you might get a little.
No. I mean, if they even trade him, his actual dollar value of it's a $7 million cap hit, but you're not actually paying him $7.
What I'm saying, I know, but what I'm saying is that if you keep him, he has the motivation.
He's going to be motivated, yeah.
Firing contract. Exactly. It's kind of like Evander Kane.
Yeah. Kadri this year has the huge year, is going to get paid.
So many guys had huge year. Forsberg, although he's pretty consistent, but still Forsberg, 40 goals in a walk year. Surprise. But
that's what I mean. Like, think about 2 years ago, JVR was hitting a point a game at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, because people talk shit on him. Yeah, on the fourth line.
Let's say he gets back to that hypothetically. Like, I mean, there's no guarantee, but let's say he does that. How much more valuable is he going to be as a piece at the deadline, right? So, like, that's a good point.
That was my whole point, is that I would not trade assets to move him.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Especially a first-round pick.
No,
expiring deal. No way.
I mean, you guys would know what options do they have? Is it possible to still get Gaudreau and keep JVR?
I personally think it is.
It is possible. It's just going to be like you have room for nothing else, essentially.
I'm okay with that.
But you have all those kids. Friggin' play them. We've been waiting for them. So just play them.
That's my point.
Isaac Radcliffe, a freaking 20 goal scorer. I don't know.
No. I 100% agree with you. I think people are way too focused in making this team a Stanley Cup contender,
which you can't do in one offseason.
The way I see it is that, okay, if I can add a guy like Gaudreau and again, I'm going to say this because if he really wants to come here, that means I don't have to compete on the open market against other teams, which means I expect to pay fair market value for what you are. Yeah, I don't want to pay 11. Exactly. I want to pay 9, at most 9.5 for whatever Calgary was offering you for a hometown discount. I want that for 7 years. Yeah. If he actually wants to come home, we got a discount with JVR. If he actually wants to come home and do that, that's where I see it being a win. To your point, Steve, in my mind, I'm okay doing almost nothing. Making some smart moves. If I can find another 26-year-old, 25-year-old, and like a steal type of player,
Dylan Strome,
like exactly. I'd rather do that. See if they can stick on my team, and then next year.
Here's the problem, though. Okay,
it won't happen.
GM, we're not the GM, and we don't have owners breathing down our backs like Fletcher.
But that's why Johnny Gaudreau's coming
to make up for his moves that have failed. Okay, his coaching decisions failed, his trade decisions failed. So he's got to prove to ownership that he's the right guy for this job.
The hot seat is there.
He knows that if they don't have a competitive team this year, if they don't make some type of improvement where they're at least close to a playoff spot around, let's say, January, that his job is going to be on the line. And, and really, you have to be concerned, and this was my concern, similar to with Bowman in Chicago. He knew he was out the door, so he's making these horrible trades that, is ownership and the Flyers fans willing to, let's say, not contend this year? And it doesn't sound, I think, I'd be concerned.
I'll say this. He's not in desperation mode. If he was, he would have traded the number 5 pick for Alex DeBrincat, and he didn't do that. That's a man who's not there. The fact that we're hearing he's not willing to move JVR, because this is a man who's being told you're not being fired. Whether he believes it or not, I don't know. Yeah, but that is the
remember though, he traded a top 10 or top 15 pick, whatever it was last year. And
I'm gonna be fair to Fletcher. Nobody thought that was a problem at the time. It was a problem, the overall package in combination with getting rid of Ghost and giving up a 2nd and a 7th. That's where everybody's like, all right, we're getting a little crazy here now. But a lot of us were like, oh, we would move the 1st-round pick. Like, we have a pretty deep pool.
Ristolainen, though, you were happy with that? I'm not even a Flyers fan. I was like,
I'm saying we were willing to move that pick.
Not for the player. Not for the player.
Yeah, the player is what kind of surprised us. But we were willing to move the pick for a young defenseman. Yeah, that was just his selection.
If the deal actually makes sense, you can trade a pick. Going into last season, I get kind of the moves he was trying to make in terms of adding, but who he added. Not the best move for the pick, but
I'm not 100% on that yet, just because Sanheim did get a lot better with Risto.
He did get better, yeah.
And I do think at time Risto was a big impact. This team just sucked. They were horrible to watch, and I want to see what they can do with an actual team that's rolling. then I want to see, like, I've brought this up over and over again, Steve, and I'm sure you pay attention to this when you scout. If I look at a team and the entire team is garbage, right? Am I going to point out the one guy and be like, oh, he's not good, even though the rest of the guys suck?
Yeah.
Or is it
the
entire team is doing well and you're like, kind of like the Wright situation. And what did you say to us about Wright? He said he's not even the best player on his own team. That what doesn't mean he's not a good team, but you're looking at the team like, look, this is a great collection of players. He should be top of the class, right? So he sticks out in a way. So if I see a bunch of guys struggling and you go, well, he's struggling. I go, yeah, but they're all struggling.
Yeah.
So what's the correlation? Is it that they all suck or is the team just not working? So I look at until I can know that for sure. I don't know. I'm like not.
It'll be a telling. This year will be telling.
It's the last opportunity they have.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah,
before they
at least for this management stuff anyway.
Yeah.
If they don't at least show that we talked about the problems that have plagued them in the past couple of years. If they don't at least make improvements in those areas. And in some cases, you might have to say like profound improvements where it's like we went from the worst power play to now top 15. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
If we don't see stuff like that, because the last thing you want to have is because remember, you have to factor in the Islanders now. The Islanders had I think it was an anomaly. They're going to be mad and they're going to be have a normal schedule and no 13-game road trip to start the season. So now you got to factor them in as well. Forget about the Devils in Columbus and all that grouping with the Flyers. But it's like how you have to keep pace with the Rangers and the Islanders and the Capitals, the bottom teams.
So many good teams in that division.
Yeah, so it could. I think mediocrity would be fine as long as they show improvement in critical areas like goaltending, shot suppression, power play.
100% agree.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's where a guy like Ristolainen, you could say, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I get why we got him.
Exactly. When the parts are actually in place and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And you have a structure that like Tortorella is going to bring that's going to make the team a bit, better defensively in their own end, I'd say too.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, at least for like the Gaudreau stuff. And then I think we'll dive into the draft after.
Yeah.
But like in terms of the free agent pool, I think the Flyers probably need more center depth. Maybe like add even another defenseman that's probably better in his own end in terms of actual like team needs. Like, do you need a winger? You were talking about like the wing depth the organization already has. So, like, as you know, Gaudreau would be a great pickup. Obviously, he's going to add a ton of talent. If they sign him, you're not going to hear a peep out of me in terms of not being happy about it. But next, off season in terms of the UFAs, I think there might be some more like attractive names like for centers, defensemen, things the team might actually need. So maybe better to save the money for that, but we'll see ultimately kind of what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the episode. And obviously a big reason why we're having you back on, Steve. Let's talk about the draft. This was I really enjoyed watching this draft. I thought it was really enjoyable because it wasn't predictable, at least at the top of the draft. And what I really like about a draft like this is that, and this is my interpretation of an average draft or whatever they want to call it. It's a draft where things aren't so clear. I'd see it as like, it's a risk mitigation standpoint where they're kind of ranking these. It's like, oh, do I see that this guy is already elite? Great. This is a great draft. But the reality is that you don't really know what most of these guys are. So if you look at an average draft, it's like, okay, here are a bunch of guys with a lot of promise, but I'm not certain he's going to be a 100-point guy, but maybe he can be. I see, opportunity to be that there. And this is what this draft kind of felt like to me. And I feel like everybody kind of got their template of their potential superstar in that top group. So before we get into Flyer stuff though, just want your overall thoughts on the draft. And what do you think about like Wright dropping to 4th, which obviously surprised the world, didn't surprise us that much. And I don't think it surprised you as much as surprised other people.
All right. So to start, I was very disappointed in the way that the mainstream coverage of the draft was being influenced by mainstream prospect writers and bloggers, and we could lump ourselves into that group. But it seemed like the narratives that from within the scouting community didn't marry with what was being said publicly by them. And when I say, like, you had 2 examples that really stood out to me. during the press conferences. One, you had a Columbus Blue Jackets beat writer ask Vili Sirin what he thought about David Jiricek being a stay-at-home defenseman. And when I heard that, I'm like, what? Why you ask? He is not a stay-at-home defenseman, not even close to it. So I'm like, so that's the first disconnect. And then somebody asked Fletcher if about Gauthier, if like, well, he was a late riser. He was not a late riser. Gauthier put his stamp on this draft probably in November with the U18 Nations. And then that's when I ranked him sixth. And a lot of people said that's so it just seemed like there was a disconnect where Wright's season was being magnified as being poor, or he was being labeled as Doug Armstrong called him a dominant sniper. No, he's a dual threat, Shane Wright. Okay, he made it more of an effort this year, and yeah, I'm questioning the GM of the Arizona or the Coyotes. But the point I'm making is that it seemed like there was so much confusion surrounding this draft, and as someone who's spent 12 to 14 months covering it, I was not confused. I really wasn't. I was very happy and comfortable with the top 80 kids. I think out of the first 64 kids picked, 56 were in my first two rounds. So it wasn't like there wasn't a whole lot of confusion there. People like Artem Duda, where did he come from? Like, well, I ranked him 32 and he went to 36. So, I didn't like that about the way that the draft was covered this year. The TV coverage was fine. ESPN had some issues on day one with the girl reading off the script, but they had the guy Bucala. I don't know if you guys saw that, the Florida Panthers ex scouting director. He was really good. He offered some pretty good insight. It seems like they were able to tell more about the players than in years past, so that was a good thing. But as far as the Shane Wright not going first overall, we knew it was a strong possibility. Some of the other narratives too, the Russia thing, it was a big nothing burger. It was a big nothing burger because we had 25 Russians drafted.
Well, Yurov did drop really low though.
Okay, well Yurov dropped, but obviously, but Marashchenko, he got drafted. True. Washington drafted him, whereas people were like, Bob McKenzie's list, which I was highly critical of this year. I didn't like the way he constructed it, and some of the first scouting director he had quoted said there's not a great prospect in this draft. That's BS. All the GMs and scouting.
That's my point. I hate that shit.
Yeah. But Bob McKenzie put that in there for shock value. He's a journalist. He's not a scout. So when he does an article that culminates,
he does admit that.
Yeah, but why are you going to your leading quote is going to be from an anonymous NHL scouting director saying that there really aren't any great prospects in this draft? That's BS.
Yeah, exactly.
No franchise players in 2017. I just want to remember.
Would you say like it's more just the fact that like in terms of let's say certain like media outlets or things like that kind of trying to label it not being a strong draft? Would you say that maybe due to the fact that a lot of the prospects aren't like exactly finished products? There might be like
can't predict
more.
It.
Yeah, exactly. There might be more time, more development time needed versus like a Michkov or a Bedard or guys of that quality. You kind of know, okay, they're kind of ready to step into the NHL right away.
You know what though? I mean, listen, I made a point this year to not be as public with my opinions as I had in the past.
Okay.
But there are other people that watch just as much as I do, and their opinions are out there. And I've said before that the mood surrounding this draft class after the 2021 U18 Worlds coming out of Dallas, everybody was in love with this draft. What happened was that these kids, mostly a lot of the Europeans, were too good for the junior leagues. They were too good. They were dominant. So they had to play in the men's leagues. And if you play the men's leagues, you're not going to put up points. Slavkovsky did not have a good season with TPS at all, production-wise. He was good in the, February, March, April, then into the playoffs. He was better, but he was not dominant. He was
only 10 points, right?
Bottom six guy. His line used to be hemmed in the defensive zone all the time. So I think people were like, "Oh, well, look at the stats. Oh, so let's just bump up other kids now who are projects." And overall, I did not like that kind of rhetoric that surrounded this draft. I was very excited about it, and as someone that spends 6, 10, 12 hours a day watching it and covering it, I was a little offended by it. I'm like, no, this is BS. It's a fun draft. These kids are good. They deserve to be considered future NHL stars. Another article, a guy in the McKenzie article said, I don't really see a number one center in there. What kind of stupidity is that? Not a number one center. And you use Braden Point and all these guys in the past who weren't drafted or were middle to late round picks. So overall, to answer your question, I thought that the draft went fine. It went according to plan. There weren't a whole lot of surprises. More overages were drafted this year than in the past, but it kind of fell down to the usually you get about 40 to 45 overages drafted a year. We saw that trend kind of dip a little bit, but now it went back. So you had like 43 overages drafted. Where teams want maybe the security of knowing they'll be quicker to get to the AHL. I don't know. It was I really wasn't blown away. Only one team's draft really blew me away, and then in a confusing way. That was Detroit's. Some of the odd. Pittsburgh, they're drafted. No, they drafted Zam Plan. I love Zam.
No. Casper. Didn't they?
Casper. I think you said Pittsburgh. Yeah. Well, I like the Casper pick, but it seemed like thereafter, like they were just trying to be cute on purpose. Like they were drafting guys on the team that weren't even as good as the draft eligible guys who were younger. It was weird. But again, Yzerman, no one wants to doubt him. Fine. But again, I thought it was confusing. But Shane Wright going down to 4. The surprise wasn't that he went to 4. It wasn't that he slipped. It was that he slipped out of Arizona, past Arizona. That Arizona went for Cooley instead of Wright. And the GM said, well, we view Wright as a shoot first center and Cooley plays with more pace as more of a playmaker. And, I kind of disagree with that. I think they're both equal in that regard, but just Wright played on a freaking loaded team and he decided to be more of a pass first guy this year. Didn't shoot as much. So I don't
know. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Who do you think was a big winner?
Minnesota, Carolina. I don't think Carolina had a first round pick, and they walked away with Cherkasov and Paravalov, and they got Grudinin, and they got. I don't think they got Grudinin, but they got the defenseman Pelea. I forgot his name, but from Chaika. But they did well. Montreal obviously did really well.
Yeah.
The Islanders actually drafted a couple of kids I liked. When they got Quinn Finley, he's a fantastic prospect. I'm forgetting, trying to think. Chicago with all the moves that they made, I agree with the strategy. They might have went a little bit high on Lamoureux, but Arizona is another one. They a lot of teams address need. They'll tell you, well, that's the way the board fell. No, your board was constructed to address a need. So it's so funny where the teams are like, oh, just going to how the board fell. Well, you draft 4, which some team needed 4 right defensemen, and they drafted 4 right defensemen. So they were asked like, hey, what do you think about that? They're like, oh, it's just the way the board fell. No, your board probably had like 90% right defensemen on it.
Right.
There's something to remember if you're as a fan when you hear these comments. Well, just the way the board fell. They all say this a canned answer. No, the board is different team to team. Yeah. And if you want to attack a need, like Arizona wanted to attack center ice, they drafted centers with their first 2.
Yeah, they're prioritizing certain things, obviously, right?
Exactly. So they'll never come out and say, we went into this draft we had a major need at this position that we attacked it. Mm-hmm. They'll always try to cover that up by saying, oh, it's how the board fell. But I did all their depth charts this year. I analyzed every single. I'm like, oh wow, they got holes here, holes there, and so some teams addressed it. But I think that most teams did attack, except the Flyers, and was one of them. They did attack the strength of this draft, which was puck moving, playmaking defensemen, and so it was odd that the Flyers decided to go for the power play specialists who were only forwards and not defensemen.
Yeah. And they did a lot of size picks too. I think the Flyers were kind of prioritizing as well.
And you saw size. You saw some teams went just for all effort and hustle. Yeah. They don't care about the skill as much as they did about he's a tough player to play against, and you're gonna love him and all this stuff that they always say every year. But
what do you think about the Kamel and Lecker-Mackey and some of those guys dropping? Like, I didn't think Kamel would drop that low.
Kamel to 17, I think that's a steal for Nashville. Then Lecker-Mackey to Vancouver 15, another steal. I'd say they could have went higher.
Yeah. Well, you look at how the draft unfolded. The guys that I'm looking at the list now. The guys that went higher on my, like Korchinski going 7, although I knew he was going to be a top 10 pick because of how dynamic he could be. I had him around like the 17, 18 mark. But I had Kamel number 2. I was a big fan of his. But you look at the guys that jumped him. I guess Matejchuk is one of them that went higher than I thought he'd go because of his size.
Geeky.
Geeky, I had him there. I expected him to go there because he's a big center and he's a playmaker. Okay. And people maybe got too caught up in his postseason. That wasn't that. Rinzel going a little bit higher. But Kamel, why did he drop? Maybe it's because of the size. Maybe it was the injury. People were concerned that he had to change his style a little bit from being this violent, physical wing before the injury that he kind of toned it down a little bit thereafter. Maybe they were concerned with that. I don't know. But the first round went pretty much the way I thought it was going to go. Based off my rankings, it was a little haywire because I put a premium on the Russian kids and a lot of the European kids. But
I mean, you mentioned Minnesota. I mean, they walked away with Ogren, right, and Yariv in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean,
beautiful.
That's pretty good.
Very high end, skilled players.
Yeah, right? And they also brought in Brock Faber. So basically,
Faber as well.
Was it? What would the trade be? Yarov and Faber for Fiala. Was that like how? Am I saying it right?
I think they only got 1 first round, right?
Yeah,
but they got Faber. Minnesota
they got Faber.
Faber and It would be Faber and Yariv, I think, right? Yeah.
But Fiala, I mean, Yariv was my number 3 player. I love the kid.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's the one guy where I was like, okay, that's a steal. I thought
so good in the MH. He was so good.
No, they knew when he was even called. Like he knew. You could just see it in his body language. When he walked up, he was just completely cold stone because he knew. Yeah. Like I'm probably belong in the top 10 of this.
Absolutely,
draft.
And he proved that at the U18 Worlds. Yeah. I know I don't like going by off a tournament, but he's a draft -1 in that tournament. He was dipsy dueling around everybody. Yeah. So we'll see.
That could be an absolute steal later on.
Agree.
So let's get into the big exciting thing. And I do want to preface this, you were talking about drafting for need. The Philadelphia Flyers have not drafted a center since 2007. Oh no, I guess 2018 they drafted Jay O'Brien in the second half of the first round. But it's been a minute. They haven't had a center, and they drafted Cutter Gauthier, 5th overall. Yeah. A guy that it seems like will be groomed to be a center. Whether he'll actually end up there or not, I think is open-ended. I'll tell you my initial thoughts, and Vasili, I don't know if you'll echo, but I think we've pretty much talked about it. From what I was saying in the beginning, if I just look at somebody with the template, the same reason why Slavkovsky gets taken so high, I see all of the elements there for a potential top star in the league. I think it's kind of up to the personality, the work ethic, and all the other things really to get there. And I even use like an example like Leon Draisaitl was taken. I don't think people really knew that Draisaitl would be Draisaitl when he was taken. Yeah. I think it's kind of up to these guys. And it seems like a second crack at what we were hoping Nolan Patrick would be, which is a big, strong guy who can carry the play and can hopefully enter behind Sean Couturier as number 2 center and help us actually be competitive where we can roll 3 lines again. Steve, what are your thoughts on the draft? And obviously, let's go through all the guys one by one, but let's start off with Gauthier.
Well, I love him. I love him. He was a kid that I didn't really focus on too much before this draft season because I knew that it was going to be Howard and Hudson and Cooley and Chesley and Casey were the big names. That I knew Gauthier was a prominent figure in that vaunted group. But I never really viewed him as a potential, let's say, top 15. McGroarty was the guy that I felt from the wing was Howard and McGroarty were the guys that I was really keying in on. But after really watching the NTDP, really all the way back to September when they were in the Pittsburgh area for the Fall Classic, I'm like, man, this kid is a dominant line driving wing who does everything right. He could stick handle. He could wire it. He's got soft hands. He's got a very high IQ in terms of his puck management, his patience under pressure. he always seems to make the right decision with the puck. He'll pass it to the right guy. He won't pass it to a teammate who's covered. He'll pass it to the defenseman who's got room, or he'll delay an extra second. So, and then I'm watching this kid now. When I get into a kid, and it's hard for me to back off or budge. But he was a kid that from the beginning of the season, I am like, that kid is going to be a star in the NHL. And if he's not a star, he's still going to be one of the best players that come out of this draft. And, and again, I don't know the stuff behind the scenes. I don't know his personality. I don't know what kind of family he's from. I don't know any of this stuff. I just focus on what's going on the ice. And the one thing that stood out to me, remember we were talking about Farabee and how he had some like, oh snap moments during his draft year where I decided to rank him ahead of Wallstrom for various reasons. Gauthier was the guy that Team USA would use for 5-on-3s. So he would center the two defensemen. I'm like, all right, so they have Cooley, they got Nazer, they got, Spicer. These are really good two-way, 200-foot centers. And they're going to entrust the wing to do that. So he could be he could play any position, to be honest with you. And when he's on the ice, when he has the puck, especially when he's operating in the circle, like let's say, so he's a left side, he's operating in the right circle. You're going to see him act like Cooley. He's spinning and twirling and, faking it and making a move to the net and then stopping short and making he's just a very smart kid. So I fully support the pick. I think that his path to the NHL is going to be pretty quick or short. He's going to do 1 year in Boston College. I would say that it's going to be a similar situation with Matt Baldy. And remember with Matt Baldy, he went to Boston College and he didn't struggle in the beginning. He just wasn't putting up points. And he was hitting the post. I think he was on a line with New Hook. But everyone was like, oh, what a bust. Oh, I'm like, oh, how could you call a kid a bust? 2 months into his college career. And now look at Matt Baldy. Matt Baldy, every team wants Matt Baldy.
Exactly. So
I could see Gauthier being that kind of a player because Baldy also, remember, I always talked about his two-way game and his quick stick. Like I'll compare him to like a Hossa or a Mark Stone. So I think that with Gauthier, you'll get the points, you'll get the power play, production, but he's going to kill penalties. He's going to be physical. He's going to be the guy that you want on the ice when you need to stop. So I thought it was a great pick.
The Mark Stone comparison, that is the closest thing I've seen to an NHL comparison to him.
But he's a better skater. Gauthier is a beautiful skater.
Yeah.
Long stride, clean, fast. He can move a lot quicker.
Vasili, I'll let you I don't know if you want to ask something. I don't want to dominate the conversation. Do you have something?
No, nothing about Gauthier, but I just want to echo kind of what Steve said. Like, I really like the pick. I mean, could really move for his size. And the thing that intrigued me the most, I obviously didn't go as in depth as you, Steve, but I mean, just from like the highlight video stuff, like just the release of his shot is crazy. So he's going to be able to rip it on the power play. That's kind of what the Flyers have been missing for sure.
Yeah, no, look, when I see it, and I think he will play center. I haven't seen a lot of him. I actually watched your film of him, right? Prospect Film Room. Isn't that you, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a great compilation for him actually, because you showed footage of not just like him shooting the puck on net and then and scoring. Great. Okay. But you actually like kind of showed him doing other things like little smart plays in the neutral zone or his own zone.
That was an awesome video.
Yeah. And the way I see it is I know what the Flyers need. And I just explained that they have not even drafted a center. This is something that the Flyers used to do very well. That was something that was never an issue. They always had a top center. Always. And right now we have Sean Couturier, and that's great. We don't have anybody to follow him up. We don't have that. And if this guy can be a center, the skills and the tool sets that I see, like what you're saying, Steve, I don't see any flaws in his game. It's up to him how high that ceiling will be. But I do see, and a lot of people are down on it. Like I see people saying he's not down on it in the sense that they think it's a bad pick. I think everybody really likes the pick, but they're going, he's never going to be a star. And in my opinion, the likelihood of him being a superstar is as high as him being a 50-point player in the league. Like he's going to be anywhere in between that range, but I absolutely see with the skills that this guy has, and I'll tell you a little bit of the research we did about confidence through the roof. Everything you said about him, he says about himself. His father used to be a pro hockey player, a goaltender. He was born in Sweden, so he actually has dual citizenship between the two.
Played in Reading, actually.
Yeah.
So there's a little Philly connection too.
Yeah,
funny.
His mom is from there, and he's again. He seems super confident. He seems like he wants to be and believes he's the best player. Like he clearly talks like, I think I'm the best player in this draft.
He's very confident. I mean, when we interviewed him too at the draft, he was very like forthcoming, gave a lot of, long-winded answers that you wouldn't typically see from like an 18-year-old just getting drafted. So that was very interesting to me too. Like he was just carried himself very confidently, which is always a good thing. So.
I do think that he has the tools and the template to be, again, a guy who's a game-changing player that will make teams very jealous and be like, damn, we need a big, strong center who can do what he does and put up points like that. And you can look at some of the ones that are, having a great center in this league is absolutely game-changing. I think it was the right bet to make.
And he's going to a great program, too. Sorry to cut you off, Yariv.
No. To that point, I am not convinced personally. I would have done this. But let me ask you something, Steve. As everything I just said about, you can see signs that the Flyers are trying to be a tougher team. I truly believe that unless it was Slavkovsky, I really don't think the Flyers would have taken anybody over Gauthier. And that includes Logan Cooley. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just looks at the fact that they're like, this guy is going to be a center. I don't know. It kind of looked to me like, this is the type of guy we want. This is what we've been looking for in this draft. Big, strong center.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the past how the Flyers they need that presence down the middle, and if I don't see any problem with him developing into a center at all. The size thing, if you go for a guy like Savoy or you go for a guy like Cooley, you look around the league. Yeah, you have your Braden Points. There are always examples. You don't need every center to be super big, huge or whatever, but. Again, like with the Flyers, really the identity, Clayton Keller is a guy that I love during his draft year, 16, playing for the NTDP. He was the #1 center. A lot of similarities to Logan Cooley. Mm-hmm. But as much as I love Clayton Keller by himself, and they have him playing wing. I know I don't really understand that. Maybe he likes playing wing, but Keller has, and he unfortunately got hurt. He was having a great year this year, his best year.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he has not been able to make an impact. Like when you go to play Arizona, you're like, we got to play Clayton Keller. Like, you're going to be in for a tough matchup because of his skill. With a guy like Gauthier, though, like that is a situation where it's like a Bergeron. I think more so Bergeron than probably Shane Wright. I don't know. I never understood that comparison because I watched Shane Wright play. He's okay defensively, but he's not like shutting. Dude, he was on the ice for like 10 power play goals against in one series. So I don't know. I never got the Bergeron comparisons. I compared him more to like a Taves Stamkos hybrid. But with Gauthier, he is a guy that when he's, let's say, 23 years old and he's, 6'2", 225, like a Jeff Carter. Well, I think Carter was 6'3". What was Carter, like 6'3"?
Yeah. Maybe like an inch taller or something like that.
Yeah, but they're about still, the same size.
Like you knew, and when Carter went to the Kings, I was like, man, what a perfect matchup or marriage for them because they played that heavy style and Carter being,
underestimated hockey player, Jeff Carter. Yeah. And that's why he's been so good for so long.
He's a beaut. I always liked Carter. And so I think that you're going to see them maybe try to have Gauthier model his game after a guy like a Jeff Carter.
That's what Fletcher said. That's what
he said, Jeff Carter. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's, listen, you have that, all those wonderful wings you got in the pipeline. You could just, I think
that's my point.
Yeah. He's so versatile and he's so team centric that you could put anyone on his wing, either side, and he's going to make them a threat. Really, when I think I might have even said it on a podcast that when all is said and done, if you put a gun to my head and you said, who's the best player to come out of this draft? I think I said Gauthier. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a Flyers podcast now, but he was a kid that I just, because of everything, the skill, the size, the speed, the maturity, the vision, the IQ, the defensive play,
all the tools,
everything that, what do you, worst case scenario is you got a freaking really awesome middle six center.
Yeah.
It could be a matchup problem and any team could use that. So But I think the sky's the limit for him. I really do. I think it's going to work out in Philly, and fans are going to love him.
Yeah, but I have a really good feeling about this guy.
Yeah.
And I think, with all the hate that Fletcher gets, which is understandable, this was a big. Well, I've talked about this for a while. What they've done so far, to be honest with you, is actually pretty good. Outside of the Lindblom thing, and maybe he's a step backwards, at least in the public eye. But coming in, bringing Tortorella, getting this top 5 pick in, which is like definitely a Flyers type of pick that'll make a lot of people happy. And then coming in and getting a guy like D'Angelo, who's a success, whether he's controversial or not, successful hockey player, and he's young and he's retained by the Flyers, and he wasn't too expensive, wasn't like ridiculous. I think these little moves are a step in the right direction.
Sure.
So let's get into other picks. And I think this next one, I think you're going to be well familiar with him, obviously, as well. And this is one that I'm told I should be really excited about. I've looked into him a little bit. I haven't seen him play really. But the one thing I will say, I love that the Flyers went US here. I'm a big fan of that. And any player that's taken from the US NTDP.
They know how to be a pro. They know how to be a pro, right?
Yeah.
But if he can be buried on how talented that team is, and again, I think people don't realize how talented the U.S. crop is this year as well. Talk to us about Devin Kaplan. Let's hear it. Flyers take him 69th overall. Funny number, but hopefully he can be.
He is a tough matchup for any team, and he could have very easily played on the top line as a wing. On the second line, remember that the top 2 lines were pretty much established and set. Mm-hmm. But you had Gauthier, Cooley, Snuggerud on the top line, and then Nazer, Howard, and I'm forgetting someone on the. Sometimes it was Gavin Bridley. I forgot who the other. But the third line was like a mix. Sometimes it had Marek Hayduk, Cole Spicer would be the center, then Kaplan would be the wing. Kaplan is a 200-foot power forward who could score goals. That's the best way I could describe him. He's a good skater, powerful, strong balance. He's agile, but he plays a physical, in-your-face kind of a game. He's got an excellent wrist shot. He could score off the rush. He could handle the puck off the rush. He's not like some stone-handed kid. So you follow the NTDP as year round. What I like the most about Kaplan, forget about his points per 60, which was excellent. His production based on his versus usage. He would have been one of the top scorers on the team if he played, let's say, 18, 19 minutes a game like the bigger names did. But when they played against colleges, I got the impression that the 3 guys on the NTDP that really surprised the heck out of these college, 23, some of them first, second round picks in the NHL. And they played big programs. They played Michigan and they played, I think, North Dakota, Minnesota. They played big program, Notre Dame, where it seemed like Kaplan, Gauthier, Chesley, and who I'm forgetting someone where they were like, oh, wait a minute. Like, okay, this is not some 17-year-old, your typical 17-year-old that this kid is freaking in my face. He's hitting me hard. He's knocking me down. So he's going to be you. They got a pretty strong class coming in. That class also has Lane Hudson, has Ryan Green. Believe I'm forgetting someone else that's going to be you next year. It's a big time prospect, but he is a guy that at worst will be a 4th line penalty killing checking type. But I think that the upside is there for more point production. He's going to be, he even acted a little bit like a center too, but I don't know if he played a whole lot of center this year, but he's going to compete hard. He's a left wing. I'm pretty sure he's a left wing. Well, he's a right wing. But he's going to compete. He's going to make all those guys, Tuamala, Brink, all of them are going to have to compete against this kid in Dev Camp or not Dev Camp because he's a college kid, but whenever they convene. He's gonna bring the best out of a lot of Flyers prospects because he's nonstop. He's all effort. He's all effort and physicality.
I mean, it sounds like, and again, the theme of the Flyers draft here was definitely big in size. Flyers are lacking this edge. They've drafted some of late, we have some that have been injured, but let me ask you this: should we expect to some degree to see Kaplan kind of put up higher production at the college level? Just based on the type of
it all depends. So here's my theory with Kaplan and Spicer to a degree, because they were on that third line. They really could not play themselves into more ice time because the guys ahead of them would not stop producing. There was never a period where it's like, all right, Jimmy Stuggerud, you're not scoring. Like so many of those guys in that top six, specifically the wings, they kill penalties. Mm-hmm. They're reliable in their own end. They know how to cover the slot or cover the points, pressure the points, so on. Battle hard along the board. So it wasn't like there was a situation where the coach had to be like, I'm really not getting a whole lot of Gauthier, so let me try Kaplan. What they would do is play Kaplan there as a reward. Like, hey, man, we're going to give you some time on the top line. We're going to let you seize power play 2-time. And that's a testament to him because Haydock saw it a little bit, Spicer saw it a little bit. It seemed like if they had to pick one forward out of the bottom six to be in a top line role or a second line role, they would promote Kaplan. So that means that his coaching staff loves him. And if the coaching staff loves him in Plymouth, they're probably going to love him and the Flyers obviously loved him, that the BU staff is going to love him as well. And he plays at that typical college game, north-south, smash mouth, in your face, pressure on the
forecheck. Great forechecker,
yeah. Yeah. So I could see himself playing into the coach will have no choice. They'll have to play him in a top six role. And by that, you get, the extra 2-3 minutes, 4 minutes a game, you're going to see more points. That's how it works.
Seems like a guy who could make his way onto the Flyers faster than most prospects, just with that type of game that you're talking about.
And the size as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just that they're so deep, though. I mean, all these kids are there's no room because, I look at Wisdom and Brink and Forster and Tuamala. Like, it is going to be, listen, this is what you want sometimes. You want that competition.
Absolutely. If anything, we'll bulk them up and trade them if we need to. Cool. All right. Actually, Vasili, do you have anything to ask there on?
Nothing on Kaplan, but I was just wondering about the next draft pick.
If you want to go.
Alex Bump. Yeah, they took him in the 5th round. I know he scored a ton of goals at the high school level, and then transitioned into the USHL, put up some goals as well. Like, do you think that goal scoring prowess from high school will continue on to the USHL?
I love this kid.
Higher levels as well.
I had him ranked 38th.
Oh, okay.
I love this kid. I forget about the Minnesota tournament. Forget about it's when the Minnesota tournament was it was his show. I mean, Prior Lake got bounced in the semis, but the way that the tournament works is they take all of Class 2A, which is the tougher bracket.
Okay.
And they have to play sectionals. So I think it's like 8 teams playing the sectionals.
Yeah.
And whoever wins the sectional, that's how you get your 8 teams seeded for the state tournament that play in the XL Center. So Prior Lake played Chaska in the Section 2 sectional, right? And Chaska had Sam Renzel, first round pick of Chicago. Big kid. And Bump terrorized them. He terrorized them. That Renzel, he had a couple of fancy plays. He goes end to end. He's a beautiful skater. He could not stop Bump. And I think Bump had like 2 goals and 2 assists in that game. Then he goes to the opening game of the state tournament and scores, I think he scores 4 goals in that one. No, he scored 5 goals in the sectional. He scored 9 goals in 2 games between the sectional and the state tournament. So, but forget about that. All right. This kid, it reminds me so much of Rick Nash. The stick handling, the size, but the goal scoring, the vision, though. He's a playmaker. I mean, everything this kid does when he is on the puck, everything has to stop for the other team and they have to focus on him. When he went to Omaha, though, it's a huge step up to go from the USA to high school to USHL. Yeah. This kid was dominant in a sense of creating. He had like, I think, 18 points in 30 games. All right, you're like, well, that doesn't sound dominant. Go back and watch the films of those games. He is dominating the puck, controlling it, twirling, spinning. He's nimble. He's agile. He's elusive, but he's like, I think 6'1", 190. And he just trucks people. He blasts people on open ice. And I think, was it Maple Grove in the semifinal? They had it like, listen, we have to stop Bump. And they were double teaming, triple teaming him, bodies draped all over him. And even still, heroic effort. And on top of all that, being the number 1 player, in my opinion, in the state of Minnesota, the best high school player in the state of Minnesota last year. He still gives it all, his all every shift. He forechecks, he hustles off the puck. He's just really, I fell in love with this kid, watched him during the state tournament. And then when I went back and watched all the film from his USHL time, I'm going to lie. He made me get up out of my seat a couple of times. I got that excited watching him play. So 5th round pick or whatever, maybe I'm overstating it. Maybe I'm just a little bit too excited about the kid. But to me, he's late 1st round, early 2nd round quality. I think he's going to destroy the USHL next season. And he's going to UVM, though. He's going to Vermont. Yeah, so it's not a big-time program, but I don't know if he's going there because he wants to be the top dog. He probably will be very soon. But he's not just a goal scorer. He's a dual threat, and he's got the meanness. So now we have 3 kids picked in a row, right? 6'2", 200, 6'3", 205, 6 foot 195, all wings, although Gauthier being groomed as a center, all physical and tough to play against.
Definitely a theme.
That's the theme
they're looking for, yeah.
All wings, though. They didn't need wings, but they wanted tough physical guys and with skill.
I think in Gauthier's case, I think they believe they were drafting a center. But I do agree with you. I think the fallback is a wing, as is most of the time with any center, right?
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. You just got me so excited about him.
That was the bomb, exactly.
You gotta watch if you can. I don't know if you just go on YouTube and see what you could find because I have Instat, so I have access to all his games.
I'll have to talk to you about that. Actually,
it's expensive, man.
I've heard
like $1,100 or something like that. It's a lot. But
if you're watching the games all the time,
you got access to everything. The only thing I don't like about Instat is that when you just break down the goals and the highlights, they don't show replay. They just score the goal and they go right to the next clip. But you have full game access of every league. The scouting reports I don't really care about. I disagree with them.
I would easily pay $1,100 for that a year.
Yeah, and I didn't. You do it in installments. But I think you have to. You guys are like credentialed media, or that's what you sell because they're not going to just give it to any fan.
No, I know.
And I think their deal is you got to promote them. You have to tweet like, thanks to Instant Hockey for providing me with this.
I'll be honest with you. I've reached out to them already and they said they were going to reach out to me and I just never heard from them. So
I got to follow up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the future.
They all, I think what they're concerned, they don't want everybody to have access to it.
Yeah.
Because it'll, but everybody the scouts use it. The NHL uses it.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Craig Eagles about it.
Yeah. But with Bump, you could find his the sectional game against Chaska. Okay. You watch. He abused Rinzel. I felt bad writing about it in the report because Rinzel's got a family, and I don't want to talk bad about their son, but freaking Bump, he had no answer for him. No answer.
Bump him off the list.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so I just got really fired up about the first 3 picks. Go Fletcher. So let's go into the next one. Then the 6th round pick, Hunter Mcdonald, the defenseman. Again, another American.
And an overager too.
An overager, 20 years old. Yeah, 6'4", 207 pounds.
Once again, a big guy.
Flyers did this a similar thing with Ronnie Attard, though it seems to be more of a defensive defenseman in this case. What do you got on Hunter Mcdonald?
All right, so he was on Omaha, big kid, mean, physical, occasional offense from like Jordan the Rush as a trailer, shoot first defenseman, definitely not a playmaker. His offense is going to be hard to come by with this kid. But with Omaha, he was like a crease clearer. He was the guy in the PK. And so the Chicago Steel got him as a hired gun for their playoff drive to defend their not defend their title, but defend their title, I guess to say, because they didn't they won it last year in 2021. But he's a big guy. He's a mean, physical, crease clearing, low slot presence, a good gap, quick feet to a degree. He's heading to Northeastern. You're not going to get offense out of this kid. This kid is a defensive stopper, if you want to call him that. Obviously, he had 2 looks at the draft. It didn't work out. So there's his 3rd look. He got drafted. Were there kids I would have taken? He was at 165. most of the guys that I care, but I'm not that big of a fan of taking double overages in the draft to begin with, because it's just the reason why there's such a low hit rate with late round picks is because they always get double overages and triple overages. They dominate those rounds, and those kids, time runs out with them really quick because you have less of a window to sign them within usually it's like 5-6 years with the college kids. Now with this, it's only going to be a couple. Well, I think this one should be 5 because he's going to go to the Northeastern. But still, he's a guy. He out of all the defensemen in this draft, they got one of the most physical, feared guys in there. But again, I don't see a whole lot of offense from him. It's just a mean, nasty guy to, fits that theme. Like we said, tough to play against.
Yeah, it seems like it might be difficult for him to crack the NHL though. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, you look at. I think he's a lefty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, left-handed. Yep.
Yeah, you already got some guys that fit that physical mold, right? Some guys, and actually, guys like Murchison could hit. Yinning could hit. I don't know what his deal is. Is he coming back?
Yinning is actually just brought over to the Phantoms.
Yeah, he got signed. Yeah.
Okay, so he'll have when he shows up when he's done with Northeastern. I think he'll be there for 4 years.
It'll be like another Yinning type of addition for them. That's
and so he shows up to the AHL. He'll be 23, 24, 25 years old, and
then see what he has from that point.
They take a while, defensive defensemen in general, just because it's a physical position. And Yinning, I mean, the issue with him is if you just took him too early. Not so much that it's a problem. This seems a lot more appropriate. All right, let's get into the next pick. And this is our first non-American, Santeri Sulku, I believe is how you say it.
Yeah, Santeri Sulku, yep.
Yep. From Finland, we took him. He's also a big kid, 6'3", 185, left winger.
Supposedly very raw skill wise. Like there's a lot of like things to like, but things you might need to put together. I'm wondering if that's like very true. Steve, what do you think?
All right, so he played on a very powerful program, Jokerit U20.
Yeah,
they had talent for days, right? In every position, they've been that way for the last couple of years. But they could not, because he was the first year eligible. He was one of the younger guys. He couldn't play more than a middle six role, mostly third line minutes. But he's a power play specialist because of his shot. So they had him between the first and second unit as the one-timer option from the circle. So he's a big kid. I like his effort off the puck. He's good along the boards. He's got soft hands. His skating is pretty good. I think he might be a little bit of a wide-based, if I'm thinking of the right guy, wide-based stride. But still, like, he moves fine. The thing with him is like the catch and release, the hands, the hand-eye coordination. Like similar to like a power play guy, right? You got him on the power play. He's on that circle, but he was able to produce, not also play make as well. He was a pretty good passer as well. Delivers the puck around the horn, good on the cycles.
Almost point per game. 13 goals, 19 assists in 35 games.
Yeah. But he wasn't playing like, 19, 20 minutes a game. I think he was playing more closer to like 15 to 16 minutes a game.
Okay. So impressive.
So he's a guy that you want to see next season, get the larger role there. I don't know. His teammate Matika, whatever, how do you pronounce it, he's going to go to Denver. A similar player, wing, shoot first wing. But he's going to go to Denver. And so I don't know if I think Sulku might be staying in Europe and his goal is to play, because the issue now with Jokerit is they're out of the KHL, or I think they're out of the KHL.
Oh, okay.
So he might want to play in the SM Liga. So expect him to maybe transfer to another organization. He's play in the SM Liga.
He's a very big kid. Actually, I'm looking at Elite Prospects now. They have him listed as 6'4", 194.
Yeah.
And you're saying this guy's got a shot.
Yeah, he's got
size. Seems like he's dropped a little bit lower than he. No, this doesn't seem like somebody who would have been taken higher. Just with the
I think I had him ranked like 135. I did a pretty detailed write up on him. So
what's his weakness? You would say.
With him, it's the off the puck play in terms of like defense and structure. But that's
that's all teachable stuff, right? I
don't really ding kids, and the skating's a little gangly sometimes. But he's a power play. He's a shoot first. I don't say he's a shoot because he actually has pretty good playmaking skills and good vision. But I with those guys, if you draft them in the late rounds, fine. You can't make a kid like who's a one-way forward a centerpiece of a draft. Like, this guy's going to solve all problems. If he's not competing in the off the puck in the other zones, that's going to be a problem, and coaches won't like that. They won't play him. But this kid, I think that he would have played a lot more and been used in more diverse situations had he just not been one of the youngest guys in the team and so on. So, you're just looking for him to just continue with the high volume shooting and the accurate shot and the power play proclivity and, everything else you could teach him later on. If there's an issue with, let's say, positioning or, he's not making the right reads. I don't have a problem with his IQ either. So it's just maybe just skating.
Interesting.
Skating related.
I'm liking this draft so far by the Flyers, just with your additional context. It seems like, look, they went kind of all out into one thing, but they really need that one thing. Yeah. So why not double it up and make sure you walk away in this draft with that thing? Yeah. I kind of get it. And then you want to go to the last one?
Yeah, the last pick was Alexei Gendron, and that's Marty Gendron's son, who's like a longtime pro player as well, AHL. And
played for Portland in the AHL, I think, the Capitals.
Yeah, I believe so. And he was a Flyer scout, so I don't know if that played.
He is a Flyer scout. Yeah, he begged them not to take him, and they took him anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And we interviewed Brent. We interviewed Brent Flair, and he was saying that. I mean, apparently that was no factor in it, but I mean, who really knows? I guess.
Yeah. Well, to that point, I'm sure Steve will have a better breakdown. But just going off his Q numbers, in his first year in the Q, he had 9 goals, 5 assists, 14 points in 31 games. Then last year, even though he was a minus 21 in 66 games, he had 30 goals, 16 assists, and 46 points. For a young player in a league that's, in my opinion, struggling right now, the Q. But it is impressive offensively. He's undersized, but
it's really speedy up the middle.
It seems like a home run swing. It's either home run or bust.
Yeah.
You could maybe view him as a potential replacement for Connor McLennan, even though he's a right wing and McLennan. But this kid is a left shot. He could play left wing or right wing. They have him listed as a right wing, but on the power play with Gendron, he's a power play specialist. This kid can freaking blister the puck. And what I love about him is the release, where it's like the puck is in his skates or like bouncing in front of him, and then the minute it hits his blade, it's gone. This kid could just, if you want to talk about elite shooters in the later rounds, he's got to be one of them. So he's a premier. He was one of the Q's premier goal scorers from the late 2003, 2004 year group. And the power play, he made a lot of money on the power play. I don't know how many power play goals he scored, but he's a guy that he was a targeted option on that BBA power play where they were looking for him, and he's confident. He's quick. He's got good speed. Attacks the middle of the ice, like you said, Vasili. He'll go down low and fight for loose pucks. But with him, I think that it's a shooting off the pass, a wrist shot, a unit, whatever way you want to shoot. I mean, this kid just loves to shoot, and he's accurate too. So it's this trend now that we're seeing with these wings. I'm surprised. With him, he's obviously not very big, but he competes hard. He's not like some perimeter guy who won't get involved in board battles. He battles. And that's almost like a guarantee now with kids when they're drafted in the AHL. Like, you have to be able to battle or be so elitely good, if that's even a word, at some one thing where they could say, all right, he doesn't battle all that much. But with Gendron, he does. He follows the puck. He's always starting and stopping during his shifts when he's reacting, react. So, you go for a home run swing. Why not grab one of the top goal scorers from his age group in one of the better leagues, the leagues in terms of producing talent out there, the Quebec League, even though it wasn't that great of a year for them total, forward-wise at least. So, I'm looking down the list. I mean, Gendron, Solku, Bump, Kaplan, Gauthier, they all have, at a minimum, plus wrist shots. I would say that Gendron's closer to the plus. Bump is definitely close to plus. Gauthier definitely close to plus, and these kids could freaking bring it. And so, that you have to. They could say whatever they want. That's just the way the board fell.
They're looking for those shooters. Yeah, they're looking for those shooters.
The puck and are used on the power play for their respective teams. So
yeah, I mean, if you look at recent history too, I mean, they drafted Tyson Forrester. I mean,
and Samuel Tuamala, same thing, plus shooter.
Same thing. So it's curious. It's interesting.
Yes.
To
Farabee.
Yeah, like why is this? Is it a Flyer like MO? I mean, I'd have to go back and look.
We're not scoring goals anymore. We're desperate for a goal scorer.
That's possible. Also, maybe the power play's been bad, so that could be. We draft these guys. One of them's got to be a great power play player for us.
Let me ask you this, Steve. Do you think that because again, we just traded for Owen Tippett as well, a guy definitely a natural shooter. Do you think that's something that's hard to teach, to find like a guy who's a real goal scorer? Like you have to.
Every team.
That's a premium in this league, right? So. Yeah,
the state of goaltending isn't that great, so it's a lot easier to score a goal nowadays than it used to be. It seems, at least. But the
power play,
the Flyers have so many guys who are really good at shooting the puck from the wing, prospect wise. You got to throw Ratcliffe in there, and it's like. There are a lot of kids that just are not going to make it because they're just the sheer the volume, the number of kids, and that's why I don't agree with the draft strategy. So I want to make that clear with the Flyers. I agree with the players that they took, but I don't agree with the strategy of drafting more scoring wings. That you have that you basically saying like, well, all these wingers we've drafted in the past, who knows what's going to happen with them? We're not so sure about the Brinks and the Wisdoms and the Forsters and the Ratcliffes and Wade Allison and I'm looking here. You had to move other guys too to play center. I know that they didn't qualify Strome,
right?
And
Krishko.
Yeah, and Ustimenko.
The
goalie.
Ustimenko, the poor guy. But anyway, you see what I'm getting at. So I guess it's a good thing that you're going to have all these wings in the same organization and just beating each other up for those prime spots, because you want to have at least two premier scoring wings on. You're not always going to have 30 goal scorers on each wing in the first two lines. You know how coaches are. Oh, we want the grinder guy there because he's good on the forecheck. You know what I mean? The Rangers this year used Dryden Hunt. Like with Panarin, why would you do that? But so I think that's
why a guy like Best is valuable, right? Not Best,
Bump,
not Bump. My God, our third round pick. Why is the name escaping?
Kaplan.
Kaplan. Oh my God.
Yes, Kaplan.
That is a complimentary type of player, right?
Yeah, and so we'll see how it plays out. I guess we'd have to say that the Flyers have the best collection of wings. In the entire league prospect pool wise.
It's something
very hard to I've assessed and analyzed every single prospect pool over the last 3 months, and I'm looking at it and I can't really think of anyone else that would match it. Now, with goaltending and with center ice, the center ice has a lot of names, a lot of guys that put up numbers. They have to hit in frickin' Lehigh Valley first, like really hit.
Yeah. I do want to talk about goaltending. You just mentioned it for a second, and I don't think this is something you would be aware of because it's like inside.
Did you have to go for the first time ever? Or
it's not just that. Actually, Brent Flair talked about Kolosov publicly. We had a press conference prior to the draft, and he said, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, Vasili, but he said that he is the best player that they have drafted, period. And meaning him and his scouting team here in Philadelphia. So out of all the picks that we made, they think Kolosov is a legitimate star.
Sure.
From what I can see. Do you see that with Kolosov?
We talked about it. We talked about it the last right when
is he like top of the is he an A prospect though?
What we specifically
KHL for his age, he played great.
To be one of the best goalies in the KHL at that age is an automatic. Obviously with Samsonov, the Caps not qualifying him, that's shocking.
That's crazy. Yeah.
We'll talk about that next. I want to end on that.
But the Sorokin and the Bobrovsky and the Shesterkin, he's just following that trend. And I think the other show I did, your buddies, last week, we said with
Isaiah.
I think the intent was for him to be Hart's backup. What's a challenge? I think Joe
Fedotov, you mean?
Yeah, is that his goal is to play his way into the NHL, and at a minimum, because we all know that Lehigh Valley was a goalie carousel.
100%. He was brought in here to be the backup.
That he is going to basically automatically, in my opinion, either be the automatic backup for Lehigh Valley or the automatic starter for Lehigh Valley. It's not going. He's not playing in the ECHL, and he's not coming to play in the ECHL. So he's either